And welcome to the first coaching clinic of 2023. These clinics happen bi-monthly, so every second Tuesday. And they're complimentary. They're really an opportunity for you to come in and be supported and get a taste of this beautiful feeling that we get to live in when our mind quietens down. So sometimes you might come in with a very revved up mind, and oftentimes it's when you think you really don't need to show up that your mind's at its busiest and either forgets or has some resistance. But just know that this space is available. And if you have clients or friends or contacts that you feel could do with it, feel free to invite them. Okay, feel free to have them come in. On today's session, I'm going to share why taking care of our spiritual selves takes care of business. And I'll open up to some questions if you feel like you want to ask me something or an insight comes to you or a comment you want to make. And then I'll move into a guided visualization to support your spiritual self and to support you in your business. So this topic came about for two reasons, really. One, I noticed myself wanting to close the door on life a little bit, not in a depressed way, but I noticed after Christmas that I just wanted to take care of myself. But I knew it was deeper than that. I knew it wasn't just self-care. And then the other reason that this topic came about was because I was interviewed by the Through Principle global community, and they were keenly interested, and I noticed a lot of clients were too, as to how I approach business and how it differs today than it used to. So I got quiet, and it really stirred in me this clarity about how I used to come up with ideas, think about my business a lot, spend a lot of mental energy and physical efforting in the end on that subject. And nowadays I don't. It really looked to me like that's what I had to do back then. You know, if we think about it more, if we worry about it more, we'll get more action and traction and all of that. In learning how the mind works, and as I call it, getting a little bit of space from Bob the drunk guy, who kept me thinking a lot about my business. He was obsessed with thinking about it. Getting a little bit of space from him, in other words, hearing that voice in my head versus hearing wisdom, it seemed to free me up from a lot of unnecessary mental energy that was being wasted on the subject of business or money or success. Nowadays, I put it like this: rather than thinking up what I should be offering or doing or giving, I'm listening to get down the downloads, the insights, the direction. And I seem to spend a lot of my coaching time with clients, helping them access that space too. Helping them become free from Bob to hear their spiritual self's guidance on the business direction. And to give you a very tangible example of that, what do I mean by thinking up versus getting down? That blue light's kind of in the way. Let me just move that a bit. To give you a tangible example of that, I was in London recently. It was my first trip back to London since COVID. It was September. And it was quite a divinely inspired trip. I had the first download about going to London. And then I opened up the possibility for clients to meet with me. And as my spiritual team would have it, they sent me a client that I then ended up working with for a day and spending the next few months coaching on her business. But as I was in London, as if that wasn't miraculous enough, but as I was in London, I was just walking the streets and I was just present, taking in the city that I used to live in. Francesco and I lived there for 6 years together. He lived there 15. I was just taking in the city and I was just enjoying being there. And I was just present to where I was. And I kept hearing, living miraculously. This is living miraculously. Living miraculously. It kept coming. And I've learned over time to notice when something is recurring, when certain language is appearing over and over. Well, as it turns out, living miraculously was my next program. And I knew it was a program because I kept hearing it. And I came back from London and I got on the phone with a colleague because that felt divinely inspired too. And I said, hey, listen, this is what I'm thinking of putting out there next. And I think that it's something that we both resonate with. We've done things like this before. Are you interested? Now, that's an example of getting down versus thinking up. What's the magic trick? A quiet mind, a present mind that simply notices when she's getting information from her spiritual self. This is why I'm so passionate about taking care of your spiritual self as a means to taking care of business. It's different to self-care, but it certainly points to a level of self-care. In other words, you're caring enough for yourself to do whatever helps you access that quieter space. You're caring enough for yourself to close the door, as I recently have been doing, on all the invitations because you know you're hearing. Let's just spend time taking care of our spiritual self. Let's not add more noise to the plate, to the world. It doesn't mean becoming a recluse, please know that. And it doesn't mean getting rid of people or never having distractions. It just means that you become interested in hearing what your spiritual self has for you next. many people innocently don't do that. They see that as a luxury. They see that as not action orientated enough. And therefore without any power. But I hope in my example, and I have many, many more, where you can get your downloads, including names of programs, including next offers, including who to call. I remember there was another situation a number of years back, and I was pretty much in a financial difficulty. And I thought, there's no sign of land. Nothing's coming. What's going to happen here? The old me would have revved something up, thought something up, created something up and put it out there, not always with any result. But I was learning to trust in my spiritual self. And again, in a quiet state, without falling into Bob the drunk guy's urgency, I heard the name of a client of mine who'd kind of gone off radar for a while. Now, it didn't make sense to me to call her because I owed her sessions that she hadn't completed. I was a little bit left in the dark as to what had happened with her, but I trusted my spiritual self. And I contacted her and I just said I was checking in because literally she came to mind. And her response at that time was, oh my God, you've been coming to mind too. I'm so glad you reached out. When can I speak with you? Now, again, there was nothing on it because remember, here was a client who I owed sessions to. I wasn't expecting her to then, purchase new sessions and this would be the financial miracle, as it were. But we had a lovely conversation. And at the end of the conversation, she said to me, I know I'm owed a few sessions, but please could I book a package for going forward now? And we'll add those sessions on top. Incredible. So, I could go on and on with examples, and maybe you'd prefer if I did, but I want to just share here that from those two examples in my business, that there's a level of trust you want to come to in your spiritual self, and there's a level of just taking care of your spiritual self that leads to success in your business. Doesn't mean you don't take any action. Remember, I called the client. I got in touch with her first and I offered the call. I came back from London and I knew that this was going to be a program, and I got the download about calling a colleague of mine to see if he wanted to collaborate on it. It's not that we don't take action, but it's that we want to be curious about creating space in our lives and in our mind. It's not selfish to care for your spiritual self. If anything, it's an act of love for your business and your family. Just mute some lines here. It's an act of love for your business and your family and everybody around you. 1 second. As you take care of your spiritual self. So whatever feelings come to you about that, maybe you feel sparked by it. Maybe you're relieved, thank God. Grace is saying that this is how she runs her business and it works. Or maybe you have resistance. Maybe it feels like, oh gosh, I can't afford to do that, or that seems too risky. Just notice what's coming for you. But piggyback on my faith here that the world has greatly underestimated the creative spark that's available from a less busy mind and a less busy life, and greatly overestimated action and thinking up and marketing and getting stuff out there and just doing the hustle. And it's innocent. You can't serve family, friends, clients in the best way possible when you haven't served your spiritual self. So there's a little bit of essential selfishness here, where you let yourself off the hook when you need that nap, where you drop the guilt because you've had to say no to something you originally had planned on, where you carve out that little bit of time and space to listen to truth, like you're doing here today. You're carving out that time and space to listen more deeply. And as you look in that direction of taking care of your spiritual self, you'll begin to get familiar with the feeling of that voice talking to you versus Bob and all the noise, the conditioning, the things you've learned. You'll begin to get sensitive to when you're thinking, trying to get a solution. You'll become very aware of that. You'll even get a bit intolerant to it as you live from this quieter space internally. I loved this piece I read the other day, and it became the mantra for this week. If you're on my mailing list, gracefulcoaching.net, you'll get a Monday mantra every Monday. And I loved what I had read, which was that when we're saying to ourselves, I can't hear myself think. Sorry, let me get that right. When we're saying to ourselves, I don't have enough time to write, to organize, to deal with people, what we're really saying is, I can't hear myself think. And what that means is our mental bandwidth has really narrowed. I've become sensitive, and I've taught my clients to become sensitive as to when their mental bandwidth is down. And it often starts with people starting to look like bitches and bastards. People suddenly, you don't want to see them, or you don't want to be with them, or suddenly they're in that category. It's not that people have changed. It's that our mental bandwidth has lowered. And we want to use those indicators as invitations to come back to taking care of our spiritual selves. Indicators such as starting to get irritated with people, starting to get anxious about things, everything feeling urgent. Indicators such as physical symptoms in your body, digestive system starting to play up more, aches and pains suddenly revving up, tightness in the neck and shoulders. The body's always feeding back how busy the mind actually is. And we've innocently learned to pay attention to symptoms and then work on the symptom with diet and exercise and this and that and the other, without realizing, understanding the level of busyness going on here impacts every other part of the body. I was on this get freak out. This is when I know my mind is busy, right? And I was on this freak out about my stomach's always bloated. My stomach's always bloated. What's wrong with me? What's wrong? I need to do this. I need to do that. And suddenly I caught myself in the act. And I was like, Grace, you're using a lot of mental energy on your stomach. And I went to sleep that night and I do as I normally do. And I said, okay, spiritual team, if there's something I need to know about this, let me know. And I woke up kind of hoping that I was going to be pointed in the direction of the right diet. But I woke up hearing, are you busy, Grace? And the dream was me in a very crowded situation, not enough time, not enough space, not enough. And it hit me. Wow, what an insight. Busy mind, busy belly. And just seeing that settled things down. We sometimes underestimate the power of seeing or hearing the insight we need. And whilst Bob continued to look in the direction of the right diet and intermittent fasting and all the things that are out there nowadays, the wellness industry is making billions off everybody's insecurity about their indigestion and about their this and about their that. And whilst Bob continues, at times still in my life, to look over there, to push me over there, my spiritual self gave me the clue. And sure enough, as the busy mind settled down, as I took better care of spiritual self, simple changes. The tension and the stress and whatever is leading to the busy belly settle down too. So I don't know what you're hearing in this, but I'm going to open it up to you now, but I'm hopeful that you're hearing or feeling that taking care of your spiritual self takes care of business, takes care of the body, takes care of family, takes care of you, and gives you the information you need for any changes you got to make, for anything you could be doing differently, for any offers you got to come up with, for any clients you need to call. When there's enough space mentally, there's an ease and a grace and a clarity and a well-being that leads you and guides you. Don't let the world fool you that that's not important, that the action is what's important. No action is of any use when it's not come from your spiritual self. So let's just open up here. Is there a question or a comment or a yeah, but? Pat, come on, oh, come on.
Hi, Grace. Hi, everyone. I think, I haven't got a business, but I can relate to this in my life. So even though I knew this was sort of a business Zoom, I knew that I would hear what I needed to hear. And it makes sense. I was just wondering, how do you take care of your spiritual self? If that's okay to ask, or what ideas would you might come up for to say to someone how to take care of their spiritual self?
Yeah. And it's a great question. I can share what works for me, and it's come from my spiritual self. In other words, your guidance as you hear it could be so different.
Yeah.
And that's okay, right? So it's a personal rather than a universal thing.
Yeah.
First, I noticed those indicators that I told you about earlier. And one of the big ones for me is when I'm starting to get overwhelmed with not wanting to see people, getting anxious about appointments I've made and wanting to cancel them. So those are just really helpful friends that let me know maybe it's time that I up the spiritual self-care. And what I've noticed works for me is I let myself off the hook. If I have to have a nap or a little sleep in the afternoon, I do. I'll often wake up from a little nap or a little sleep because the mind is very busy. It will often need that extra fuel of a nap. I'll often wake up from that nap and notice an insight or a clarity. So I've learned not to beat myself up about napping. And I encourage all of you to do the same. Saying no to I'm noticing myself in the habit of constantly just automatically saying yes. So what's helped me, what's my spiritual self has pointed me to is don't just respond with, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Because I was probably like an over-agreeer. Yes. Okay, yes. And it was just so innocent, but it was automatic. And I also didn't want to let people down, also wanted to be part of the crowd, also didn't want to be alone sometimes. It was all sort of like that. So sort of just pausing. I think spiritual self pointed me to pausing before agreeing to situations. I'm on a learning path. We're all learning here, So being gentle has been important. Being gentle about, quote unquote, having a relapse, like suddenly going back to busyness and speed and urgency. Like I've come to say, oh, that's okay, because that's just more helpful information that your mind has gotten busy again. So learning to be gentle has really helped, Pat. Anything that gets me present. There I was in London that time, and I'm not saying that you have to travel to get this, but there's something about being in a different place or a new place or seeing something new that pulls you into the moment. So maybe, whilst I usually would do the normal walks that I would do, I started doing a new walk with my dog. And I noticed that was my spiritual self guiding me. Try this, Grace, go down that path, try this walk. And that pulled me into new surroundings, like, oh, look at that and look at that. And you get present. I used to wake up in the morning, the first thing I had was espresso. I noticed a really strong calling from spiritual self to swap over to tea, have the coffee later. That was interesting because that was, spiritual self was giving me a physical indicator. Drink more water and start with tea. I noticed that the tea was waking me up nicely in the morning, but without that sort of lag that I get from espresso. So our spiritual self will also guide us with the physical, what will help us physically. As more comes to me, Pat, I'll share.
Okay.
Some of the key things that so far have been enriching my experience of enjoying life and business, feeling taken care of, feeling good. Very simple. Now, of course, there's probably backlash around, there might be backlash around me or around you as you begin to suddenly say no when you always say yes. But your spiritual self, it has to matter to you more than their opinion and approval. It has to matter more. And if you're ever in doubt about prioritizing yourself and your spiritual self, you just remember that you can't have a business working without this. You can't have good relationships without this. It benefits everybody when you're in your well-being. And most of us here are in the business of well-being. So we have even more reason to prioritize the well-being, to be able to say, no, I'm sorry, this time is dedicated to my spiritual self because this is how I end up helping others. It's not wrong. Is that helpful, Pat?
Yeah, it's helpful because it's, for me, it's sort of, sometimes I don't know what to do that, but in knowing what you've pointed out, which I love, your bitch and bastards, that is my favorite, because that's when I know I'm going, all the people I love, hope this doesn't go out everywhere, becomes bitches and bastards, and I'm giving out in my head about them and all that. So I'm noticing the things, those things that I'm in my head and not at peace or in the quiet. So I'm finding I'm noticing what behaviors or what things when I'm in that and catching it. And then I think what you've just said now, if I'm not sure what to do, is to just sit down, take a few breaths and be at the peace, and then maybe ask. You see, this is a new one for me. It's this asking. I'm not very good at asking my spiritual team or even putting into words. I hear you say something and I write down what you say, is ask them. But I could ask, what could I do next? Or, I feel thank you. That was very helpful.
That's great, Pat. Yeah, the serum is in because you start to notice how you feel. And as we notice how we feel, we stop running in the wrong direction. I remember a coach of mine saying at one point, what good is speed if you're going in the wrong direction, Grace? And that never occurred to me because I, just lived on the speed. Oh, as long as you're taking action, as long as you're in speediness, you're doing it. It's important also, I noticed, this came to me too. So great question, Pat, because it's helpful for everyone. It came to me too from my spiritual self. Stop grabbing the phone the moment you wake up. I didn't realize I was doing that so much. So one of the changes I've been making is not just grabbing and, having to respond to me. It's actually just listening to truth, listening to Sydney Banks for a few minutes, doing my meditation for 12 minutes, or just sitting quietly. But the feeling you fall into, and I hope everyone begins to get a sense of this, the feeling you fall into is your guide. So feelings of restlessness, feelings of overwhelm, feelings of urgency and stress, and feelings of work, those are guides saying, okay, come back home. Those are the exact time that you want to sit down and take some breaths and tune into your spiritual self. Innocently, what we've learned to do with those feelings is speed up more, worry more, take more action. So it's a bit counterintuitive what I'm suggesting here, but just get interested in the feeling you live in, because the feeling you live in matters. And people know you by your feeling, you know, but it's a bit of it's a selfish act, but it's an essential selfish act, because you're taking care of your spiritual self, and then everybody else around you benefits. Michaela.
Hi, Grace. And everyone. So I don't know if I think I know the answer to the question, if there's even really a question. And it is around thinking what needs to happen in order for these other things to happen, or that I want this to happen before that. So a little back stuff. I stopped coffee. Not that I'm going to stop drinking coffee forever, but coffee's been on mine, just to think about your espresso, has been in my mind for quite a while. And it's been a week now that I haven't had coffee. And I actually tried to have some on the weekend. It was like, no, but tea is right. Yeah, your body does tell you, right? When you listen. Yeah. So here's a couple things that have happened. Last Thursday night, so I've been invited to co-host a podcast, which I just knew that, yeah, even then I'll say these words, even though my website is not done, I don't really have a community. I had a Facebook group that I had started a couple of years ago, and then I paused it a year ago because it's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And it felt like I wasn't serving them well. I wasn't sure how to serve them. And I felt like it was always on my mind. So I didn't close it for some reason. I didn't even pause it, actually. I just said, hey, I'm going to check out some other things right now. You'll see me around somewhere. So I have I have an Instagram, and I have a LinkedIn, and I don't really do anything regular. There's no consistency in it. Mm-hmm. So then when I had this conversation with this other coach, and it was just like I'm thrilled about that. I have a YouTube channel that I only have one thing on there. Like, it's crazy. Everything is like half done. And then it's like, okay, hang on a minute. So last Thursday, I looked at my calendar. I looked at my schedule. And I saw, okay, I'm in a program where there's 3 calls a month. I'm in another program that there's a call every Friday, which I'll always show up to live. And there's another one that I've just started, and it's 2 times a week for 3 months. And it's just like, what am I doing? I am like, I have all these things I'm signing up for. It's in prime time for me. They're all in the morning, which is like, my mind in the morning is like popcorn. I have so many ideas, so many cool things to post about, talk about, write about, videos to do, cool ways to, and it's like all of that energy is being like, because I'm sitting and taking in all these other things. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, so I'm kind of flipping it on its head, where all those calls are recorded. So I can listen to them anytime. And I had a thought of, if I don't show up live, I'm not going to listen to it. That was my rule before. So I always made a point of showing up live. And then it's like, okay, if it's not important enough to show up on a recording later in the day or the next day or later in the week, it's like, maybe I don't need that. Maybe that's not really so important. So there's a lot of things that are coming up. I feel like the pot has been stirred and there's not a lot settled yet. And this is, of course, my first week where I'm not, like, there's a call after this. And even when I saw your email on Monday around time, it's like, oh my gosh, like, I'm all in, like, I'm clearing my schedule. What's already booked in there, I'm just not, I'm doing this because it's top of mind. And then earlier this morning, I had a call that I do go to every morning or every week, but I was invited to be part of an international women's summit. And it was just like, yes. And then as she began to talk, and she wants, a free resource and it's like, I have one, but it created in the summer. It needs to be redone because it's like, I wouldn't use that title anymore. And it's like, oh my God, I don't have my website isn't done. So I'm kind of in I'm afraid that source is going to say, yeah, you don't need a website. I'm like, no, I really want that website. But actually that I haven't been getting that. That's the one thing that feels like a foundation. Like, it truly feels like a foundation. But it's like, if that really is a foundation, then why is it feeling like such a burden to like sit down and do the copy? Because I've created some and now there's more to do. And when I think about it, like, away from it, there's not much to do. Just go do it, Michaela. And then I get in there and I don't know, I'm just a little muddled around.
Well, you can listen back, Michaela, to how you spoke here. At the beginning, you said, I think I know the answer to my question. It's a question. What's the answer, if you want to share? What do you see as your spiritual self inviting you to?
Yeah, it's just say it how I would say it. Just say it how it comes out of my mouth. That, yeah, there's some things that that it makes sense to, people will want to know, well, why should I listen to you? Or what are you going to help me with? Or, I need to let them know those things, but I don't have to go back and review the not one, but two copy writing courses that I purchased over the last couple of years.
Yeah, you can trust yourself. You can trust yourself. And I hear, source is practical. It's not going to scare you with, oh, you don't need a website. Source is very practical. But it's not interested in perfectionism. And somewhere along the line, instantly, Bob starts shooting off about how perfect your copy needs to be and what other course you need to review before you even write. And yet I hear such simplicity and truth in just write how you talk.
Yeah.
And don't be so hard on yourself. Why aren't I doing it? This is one of the things we must all learn, to just never ask why. Why aren't I doing it? Why did I have a nap? Why did I decide to drink coffee after a week not drinking coffee? No. Just notice. Oh, I'd like to finish the website and I think I could just write like a talk. Okay. And we start stirring up some possibility there. Oh, I'd not drink so much coffee. And day by day, I'll see how that goes, and my spiritual self will keep guiding me physically. Oh, I think I know the answer to my own question. Great. Oh, look how I'm learning to really tune in and trust myself. There's such progress there, Michaela. And I also heard you say, oh, the morning's my prime time. And I noticed that I'm filling it in with different stuff. Maybe I don't need to do that so much anymore. Great. That's the point of change, rather than, but I've bought all these courses. What do I do now? Incremental change and becoming gentler is what I hear.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think now we'll move into our guided visualization. I don't see any other questions or hands up at the moment. So if you do have something that comes to mind, you can write it in the box. Otherwise, I think at this point we'll move into the guided visualization. And this visualization, is just support you in reconnecting to that part of yourself that has the direction, knows the answers, lives in a quieter state of mind, and is able to make changes, however small, however gentle and subtle. I'm always a bit wary of extremes, all or nothing. Whereas our spiritual self just invites us, I've noticed, to a kind of a gentle change. Maybe not even a regular, consistent thing, but a gentle turning of the ship. So let's close our eyes. Just take a few breaths in through the nose and out through the nose or the mouth. In through the nose and out through the nose or the mouth. When you're just becoming present to the feeling you're in. Notice if you're a little quieter. Notice if your well-being has risen up as you've heard some truth and clarity here. Notice if you're just feeling busy-minded, if things are still feeling urgent and like you're jumping to the next thing after this. And just come back to the present. One of the ways we can do that easily is we can imagine roots coming from our feet down through the ground, down into the underground, and right down to that rock at the bottom of the earth, and wrap those roots around that rock. See golden light emanating from that rock. All the way up through, all the way up through the underground, the ground, up through your floorboards, in through your feet. And up through the body. See yourself now just emanating this golden light. It's supporting you. It's surrounding you, enveloping you. The light of your true nature. Ready to take care of you. If there's any place in your body that's holding tension, if you've noticed aches and pains lately, just send the golden light to that area. And let the golden light continue to heal you and ground you. And see it extending up through your head, a few inches above your head. And imagine an incredibly powerful star a few inches above your head. And the light connects to that star, becoming golden. And as it does, it pours down this gorgeous elixir of golden light once more, down through the head, through the hair, through the face, down through the back of the neck, the front of the neck, into the chest, down through the spine, all the way through the torso, down the left leg, right down to the feet, left foot, down the right leg, right down to the right foot. And it continues then to move down, right down to the bottom of the earth, and connects to that rock at the bottom of the earth. So you're completely centered and grounded in this light. Notice the feeling you're in. Get familiar with this feeling, the feeling of your spiritual self. Present, quiet, filled with wisdom and well-being. And now think about some situations in your life where you're really wanting guidance. Could be your business, could be a relationship, could be your physical body, could be about a home or a house move, a location change, money, an animal in your life, friendships. It could be about technology. It could be about your car. It could be about your fridge. It could be about beauty and treatments. Anywhere that you're seeking guidance, where you'd like it just to get easier, that you'd just be clear and would know. And call on your spiritual self now by inviting your spiritual self to pay attention with you to that area. And one of the things that you can do is you can say, visualizing the area, what do I need to know about this? And thank you for sending me the right information, the right guidance, the right person that can support me in this area. And send the golden light to that area. Your only real job now will be to notice the download or notice the connection, the phone call, the person, the stirring within you in a particular way to take some particular action. Your only job is to notice as your spiritual self guides you or sends you exactly who and what you need. So coming back to the chair that you're sitting on, just feeling yourself present. And if you'd like to, before closing, you can ask your spiritual self, how can I take care of you better? You might get an image, you might have a recurring thought, a knowing, or you might get something in your dream state tonight. You might wake up tomorrow morning with an answer. And you can keep asking that question over the coming days as you take some time to get a little quiet and asking, how can I take care of you better? How can I hear you more clearly? Now that you understand why taking care of your spiritual self takes care of business and everything else, now you can let yourself off the hook about prioritizing that, aligning to that over all the other tasks you think you should be doing first. Visualize those roots now coming from your feet, down through the ground, into the underground, right down to a rock at the bottom of the earth, and wrap those roots around that rock. Breathing in through the nose and out. Breathing in through the nose and out. Gently move your fingers, move your toes. Come back into this moment, opening your eyes gently. And if I can be of service to you with your business, in combination with supporting you in trusting your spiritual self more, get in touch. There are some ways we can work together privately, and there's some other options around the corner too. So we can explore what is best for you. I work on everything from 4 sessions to 4 months to group programs to retreats in person. There's a whole range. I hope this has been helpful today, and you can reach me on gracefulcoaching@gmail.com. And you can also WhatsApp me on +39 347 659 4065. Lots of love, everybody. Back with you in 2 weeks. Ciao.